You want to write a story, but you have no idea where to start. That's what we're talking about today. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking, subscribing. I really do appreciate it. If you're finding value, please be sure to hit those buttons. Let's jump in. So you're wanting to tell a story, but we got to make sure that we're on the same page about what a story is. A story simply is about someone who wants something badly and is having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't. This is what you're wanting to tell if you're wanting to tell a story. So what are the things you got to know to tell the story? What are the things you got to have? What are the pieces that are essential, the pillars that you're building your house on? What do you have to have? Okay, well, you got to know the someone. Who is the story about? What are they like? What do they dislike? Where are they from? A little bit about them. Now, you'll read some things and people are like, oh, you need a 10-page bio and history of each of the characters. You got to know them so well and what they do. No, you don't. You don't need to know that stuff. You need to know a little about them. You need to know how they might react in situations, but you don't need to know all that. You also need to know what for them would be called a life dream. This is something that we call a life dream in storytelling. A life dream is something that a character is hoping to achieve within the course of the story. Now, they don't know how long the story is, but you as the storyteller do. You know how long the story is. So what are they hoping to achieve? Maybe this character says, you know what? I want to have a job working at Google. It's like, okay, I want to have a job working at Google. This is my life dream. I want to do that. Then you back up a step. What do you think, or what does the character think they need to do to be able to get that job at Google? Maybe they say, don't question the logic here, just go with me. So maybe they say, okay, for me to get a job at Google, I first have to have a job working at McDonald's. And I've got to have that job for 2 years and work my way up to a manager. So if I can work my way up to a manager at McDonald's, then I'll be able to get my job at Google. And this is what is actually holding your movie together. This is going to be the main tension of the second act. So what is it they want that they think is going to help them get their life dream? Okay? Remember, a story is about someone who wants something badly, and then they're going to have trouble getting it, and then they get it or they don't. So we're going to find out an answer. Whatever that answer is, we need to know, does the person become a manager and they're a manager for, within 2 years? And let's say, yes, they get that. Okay, now they're going to go try to get this job at Google. And maybe they're right and they can get the job, or maybe they're wrong and they can't get it. But this is what our movie is about. We got to know this part of our story. We also need to know one other thing, and this is the need of the character. So for them to be able to successfully be a manager for 2 years, maybe at the beginning, they are a very selfish person. And what we want them to learn and become is someone that is more of a servant. Maybe somebody that is willing to help other people, someone else get the leg up. So what if in our story, as we're talking about our story, we've got our character, let's call him Fred. So Fred is here, and Fred thinks he's got to be a manager and do that within 2 years. And as he's going along, and Fred is very selfish, and he's like trying to step on people and do things, and we're like, dude, this is not going to work well for you. And he's having a hard time, and he can't get manager, he can't figure out why. And then he starts helping other people. And then what Fred realizes is like, oh, you know what? Maybe I need to help other people succeed, and that will help me succeed. And in all of that, suddenly now Fred gets his manager position, and he's learned what he needs to learn. So here's the things you got to know about your character. You've got to know a little bit about who they are and some of their likes and dislikes and things like that. You've got to know what their life dream is. You got to know what their want is, and you got to know what their need is. Okay? And all those things are going to help you be able to tell the story. Now, our main character is not the only person in the film. There is usually an antagonist. Sometimes there's an antagonistic force. So like if it's a disaster film, it's a volcano that's erupting and we got to try to escape, or it's an earthquake, or whatever it is, right? That's a disaster. That would be called a disaster film. And the antagonist in that case is the force of nature that just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. In this case, with our story with Fred, it's probably not that. Maybe there's a rival who's wanting to get the manager position at McDonald's for a whole other reason. Fred wants to get it so he can then parlay that and go work at Google. Somebody else wants to do it to impress some girl or something like that. And so Fred and this other person are constantly at each other, right? So I've got to know who that antagonist is. And I also kind of need to know what their want is. I don't necessarily need to know their life dream. I don't necessarily need to know their need. I might, and it might be helpful and help you craft a better story, but I don't have to know that right at the beginning. Okay, but I do need to know who is the antagonistic force for my main character going through that's going to cause the conflict all throughout the middle, right? Someone who wants something badly, Fred, who wants this manager job, but is having trouble getting it. Why? Because this antagonist is fighting him at every turn. Why? Because what Fred needs and he's not listening to, and he's going against himself. He's being selfish. He's trying to sabotage this other person. It's going badly, and the other person's getting promoted, and it's backfiring on Fred. And how's he going to do this? And like, that's the conflict that happens in the middle. So if I can know these bigger, broader things, that will help me start to figure out those pieces. But do I have to know them to start? Nope. But I do need to know who my character is. I got to know what their life dream, their want, their need. I got to know who their antagonist is. And I also have to know the setting. I've got to know the setting, because trying to be a manager at McDonald's in 1960 is very different than trying to be a manager at McDonald's in 2021 or 2020 or whatever it is, right? It's different. So I need to know the setting. Setting is when and where. If I'm in a rural location as opposed to a big city, that's going to be different. That's going to create different kinds of conflict. So I kind of want to decide on my setting pretty early on, because that will help me figure out the nature of the story and what's happening. Last, I need to know how it ends. I need to know what happens at the end. Does Fred get the job at Google or not? Does Fred become the manager or not? Maybe Fred doesn't become the manager, but he's learned what he needs to learn, and as a result, he ends up being able to get a job at Google. Maybe through his servant thing of helping somebody else when he didn't really want to, but he did. He chose to help somebody else instead of taking the manager job. He helped somebody else, but one of the customers saw him do that and was really impressed, and that person happens to work at Google, right? Like, that's kind of the cliche, but can you do that? Sure, you can do that. Especially if you've set it up. Maybe that customer's a regular customer, and then it doesn't feel like a surprise at the end. So you can do all kinds of things, but you've got to know those basic steps. I got to know who the character is. I got to know their life dream. I got to know their want. Got to know their need. Got to know who the antagonist is. Got to know setting, and I got to know how it ends. That's what's got to happen. If I know those things, I can tell a story about someone who wants something badly, is having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't. I got to know the end. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, please like, subscribe, bell, all that stuff. Really do appreciate it. Happy writing. And if you're going to tell a story that matters. See you later.